Have you ever wondered what could lead to the complete destruction of a city by fire and brimstone? And what drove the daughters of Lot to make the radical decision to sleep with their father in order to ensure the continuation of their lineage? Imagine living in a time when fire from the heavens is seen as God's response to sin and injustice. In today's video, we will explore one of the most striking stories in the Bible, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. This story is not just ancient, it serves as a powerful lesson about the sins that attract divine wrath and what this means for us today. I kindly ask you to help by liking this video and settling in comfortably. Below the video. Within the vast expanse of sacred scripture, the account of Sodom and Gomorrah stands as one of the most captivating and illustrative tales, offering a glimpse into ancient life in the Middle East on the fertile Jordan plain. These cities were not only geographical landmarks but also symbols of prosperity and wealth. The contrast between the arid desert and the bustling cities highlights the beauty and affluence of Sodom and Gomorrah, which thrived under God's protection and blessing. The book of Genesis shows us that the land of Egypt was akin to the garden of the Lord before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, illustrating the greatness of the region where these cities flourished. But this prosperity reflected not only the fertility of the land but also the inhabitants' ability to manage their resources. The cities were known for their wealth, culture, and ostentatious luxury, rivaling any major metropolis of the time. It was a place where life seemed abundant, although tensions and conflicts arose as the plot unfolded. While Sodom and Gomorrah were renowned for their riches, this did not save them from destruction. It is essential to grasp the historical and geographical context formed near today's Dead Sea in a region conducive to economic and cultural prosperity. Yet, as the story unfolds, this prosperity became the stage for great moral decay. The Bible mentions that the inhabitants of Sodom were wicked and great sinners. As God unveils their iniquity and sets the stage for the forthcoming drama, He blessed these cities with abundant resources, but as their morality deteriorated, the connection between prosperity and righteousness grew increasingly complex. The Bible makes it clear that despite their abundance, there was a growing deviation from divine principles that could provoke events of immense significance. Here, we begin to understand the true consequences of moral decay and the urgent need to reflect on the values that uphold justice and holiness. These cities, once radiant with wealth and prosperity, were steeped in actions that shocked not only their contemporaries but also the faithful to God. For generations, the prophet Ezekiel pointedly describes the state of Sodom. "This was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy." Ezekiel 16 verse 49. Among the list of sins is the absence of compassion and justice, qualities that could not go unpunished before God. The Bible shows that arrogance and a lack of solidarity were distinguishing characteristics of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. The book of Jude confirms this view, mentioning that these cities faced punishment by eternal fire for those who indulge in fleshly impurity. Jude 1 verse 7. Among the most notable sins was pride, a form of vanity manifested in the wealth and indifference of its inhabitants. Gluttony and idleness painted a picture as the abundance of resources led to an extravagant lifestyle and the neglect of others' pressing needs. The dwellers indulged in pleasures without consideration for the consequences of their actions for those less fortunate. This combination of sins testified to a lack of empathy and justice, fundamental pillars of a fair and balanced society. Equally alarming was the injustice perpetrated by the king in the everyday lives of Sodom and Gomorrah. The Bible indicates that the lack of compassion and disregard for the needy were commonplace. They never strengthened the hand of the poor and needy. The failure to promote justice and solidarity created an environment where sin flourished unchecked, paving the way for the coming severe judgment. As we better understand the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah, it is impossible to ignore the depth of corruption that gripped these cities. The violation of divine norms and the absence of repentance led to an inevitable fate, the judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah. This is one of the most dramatic and striking stories in the Bible. Illustrating God's response to unchecked sin, the story begins with the intervention of angels sent by God to investigate the situation in the cities. In Genesis, we read that two angels arrived in Sodom at dusk and were welcomed by Lot, who hospitably took them into his home despite the obvious danger. Genesis 19 verse 1. Lot, Abraham's nephew, plays a crucial role in this biblical narrative. He was the son of Haran, Abraham's brother, and was under his uncle's care as he was still young after his father's death. Abraham, known for his faith and obedience to God, took it upon himself to care for Lot, and their relationship became a foundational partnership in his journey. The Bible presents Lot as a man of character, yet whose path brought him to difficult choices and immense trials. As Abraham and Lot prospered in their possessions and livestock, there was not enough land to support both families, leading to a peaceful separation. Abraham offered Lot the first choice of available land, demonstrating generosity and trust in God. Lot, seeing the fertile lands around the Jordan, chose to settle in the plain that included the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, drawn by their prosperity and wealth. Lot's choice seemed logical from a material standpoint, but as the Bible shows, the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were also notorious for their immorality and sins. Settling in Sodom, Lot became not only a resident but also a local leader sitting at the city gate, indicating his status, respect, and influence. However, this proximity to sin and injustice carried enormous spiritual and moral problems. Lot's life in Sodom became an arena of increasing tension between material prosperity and moral decay. Lot's presence in the city did not prevent the prevalence of corruption and injustice, rather, it placed him in a position where he desperately needed divine intervention. This is one of the reasons why Lot was chosen by God to welcome into his home the two angels arriving in Sodom. The arrival of these messengers marks the beginning of a series of events that will lead to divine judgment. The situation quickly takes a dark turn as the men of Sodom surround Lot's house, demanding that he hand over the visitors so they could have relations with them. This act of malice and violence is a stark demonstration of the moral decay that engulfed the city. In a desperate attempt to protect the angels, Lot offers his daughters in exchange, showing how severely his morals were tested. However, the angels intervene and blind the attackers, preventing them from achieving their aims. The next step in God's judgment is the inevitable warning. The angels inform Lot of God's plan to destroy Sodom, urging him to flee with his family. In an act of mercy, the angels say to Lot, "Flee for your lives. Don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain, flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." Genesis 19 verse 17. His urgent desire to flee and the command not to look back reflect the seriousness of the situation and the necessity to escape divine judgment. After the angel's warning, Lot initially hesitated to leave the city. Genesis 19 verse 16 mentions that Lot hesitated. This indicates that, despite the urgency of the situation, he did not move immediately as instructed by the angels. His hesitation might reflect the difficulties of leaving the city, the life he knew, and possible misunderstanding of the seriousness of what was happening. In a display of compassion, the angels helped Lot take refuge. Further in the biblical text, it states that the men took his hand, along with the hands of his wife and two daughters. By the Lord's mercy, they brought him out and set him outside the city. This act demonstrates divine compassion and direct assistance in saving Lot and his family, despite his hesitation. When Lot and his daughters headed toward the city of Zoar, it is noted that Lot's wife did not obey the divine command and looked back. Disobedience to this simple yet crucial directive resulted in a horrific transformation. The Bible reports that Lot's wife looked back and became a pillar of salt. This transformation symbolizes the condemnation and inalterability of divine judgment upon Sodom and Gomorrah. The city's destruction came by fire and brimstone, just as God had promised. The Bible describes that the Lord rained down sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of heaven. This fire not only consumed the cities but also served as a clear sign of God's wrath against evil. The complete devastation of the cities was an act of justice, as well as a warning to future generations about the consequences of sin. This event marks not only the end of Sodom and Gomorrah but also lays the foundation for reflection on God's justice and holiness. The ruthless judgment illustrates God's commitment to righteousness and the severity with which he deals with sin. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah serves as a powerful lesson on God's justice and holiness, warning all generations about the consequences of sin. The harsh sentence against these cities shows that God does not tolerate moral decay and injustice. The Lord declares, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave." This statement reveals the severity of the sins committed by the cities and God's divine commitment to justice. In his holiness, God cannot ignore violations of the principles he has established. One of the most vivid lessons is the importance of saving the righteous and obeying God's will. Lot and his family were spared from destruction due to Lot's righteousness and his obedience to the divine warning. Lot left Sodom, he fled to the mountains, and his 2 daughters were with him. This act of mercy towards the righteous underscores God's faithfulness in preserving those who follow his ways. Even amid the harsh judgments of the iniquity surrounding them, furthermore, this story highlights the necessity of detaching oneself from the world and its temptations. The command given to Lot not to look back symbolizes a rejection of old customs and a separation from corrupting influences. "Do not look back," says the Lord, giving a clear instruction not to cling to the orders and habits that led to the destruction of the cities. His hesitations and resistance while leaving the doomed city had consequences for his wife, who did not obey the command and turned into a pillar of salt. This detachment is crucial to living according to God's will and avoiding the same mistakes that led to the downfall of Sodom and Gomorrah. The destruction of these cities serves as a constant reminder not to underestimate God's justice and holiness. The Bible clearly states that sin has inevitable consequences and that divine justice is infallible. The lessons from the fate of Sodom and Gomorrah call for personal reflection and action in accordance with divine principles. Reflecting on these lessons, we realize they hold profound significance for our modern lives. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is not just a tale from the past but also a guide to living a life that pleases God and rejects injustice. Lot, having chosen to live in Sodom, made a choice that reflected his desire for comfort and prosperity, but it also subjected him to the consequences of the city's unchecked sin. His decision to stay there, despite the signs of moral decay, placed him in a critical situation, as destruction became inevitable. This story also shows how our choices can impact not only our lives but also those around us. Lot's decision and the subsequent tragedy had a profound impact on his family and on himself, serving as a reminder that our actions have far-reaching consequences. It is crucial to seek divine guidance in all our decisions to avoid mistakes that can lead to serious repercussions. Fleeing from Sodom and Gomorrah marked the beginning of Lot and his family's life, which took an uncertain path full of trials. After leaving the doomed city, Lot's family took refuge in Zoar, a small neighboring city, at the request of the angels. Although Zoar was a safer option than the surrounding regions, they were overwhelmed by the fear of impending destruction. Even in the temporary safety, Lot and his daughters' lives would not be easy. The Bible shows that after some time, Lot and his family moved from the neighboring cities to live in the mountains. Staying in Sodom was rejected due to a persistent fear of God's judgment and the necessity to find a new home in a less risky environment. In the new place in the mountains, Lot's life became marked by isolation and deprivation. He and his daughters found themselves in a situation of great vulnerability. Transitioning to a simpler and more isolated life brought challenges in survival and adaptation to a new lifestyle. The Bible does not provide details about this period, but it is clear that the family faced a life full of hardships as they tried to rebuild their lives away from the civilization they knew. The situation worsened further when Lot's daughters, feeling abandoned and deprived of future prospects, made a radical decision. Believing they were the last survivors of humanity, they decided to ensure their father's continuity. In a scandalous episode, Lot's daughters got him drunk and slept with him, resulting in the birth of 2 sons, Moab and Ammon. These sons became the ancestors of the Moabites and Ammonites, respectively. This account, found in the book of Genesis, chapter 19, verses 30 to 38, reflects the difficult circumstances and desperate decisions made by Lot's family in a time of crisis. The journey of Lot and his family after leaving Sodom serves as a powerful reminder of the consequences of decisions made throughout life. The drastic change in their lifestyle and the issues they faced reflect the complexities of life and the importance of faithfully following God's guidance. By studying these lessons, we begin to understand the significance of seeking God's will in our lives and how it can affect our destiny. Just as Lot was instructed not to look back and flee to a safe place, we are called today to focus our gaze on Christ and not to succumb to the temptations of the world. The Bible warns us, "Therefore stay alert, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming." In a time when morality is often questioned by cultural norms, it is vital to reflect on how we live and whether we uphold principles of justice and holiness in our lives. The Bible encourages us to examine ourselves, test yourselves to see if you are in the faith. Applying these lessons helps us align our actions with divine values and avoid the moral decay that led to the destruction of ancient cities. Spiritual preparation involves prayer, studying the scriptures, and living in obedience and holiness. The Apostle Paul urged, "So stay alert at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are going to take place and to stand before the Son of Man." Keep these reflections in mind as you move forward. Understanding these principles prepares us to wisely and steadfastly face life's challenges, aligning our lives with divine purpose and maintaining the necessary spiritual vigilance. If you have made it this far, please leave us a comment to let us know if this video carries a positive message for you. Thank you for watching. Take care. God bless you.